Hello students, welcome to the lecture on leadership. And after this lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand definition of leadership, discuss theories of leadership, describe leadership styles, define types of leadership, explain contingency model of leader effectiveness, define leader behaviors. Let's start with the concept of leadership. Leadership among Greek warriors was based upon a first among equals principle. Such leadership was a product of a culture of equality and mutual accountability. In a very tangible sense, cultures are networks of social relationships. Military cultures, especially in battlefield situations, have highly articulated rules and codes of conduct and mutual accountability. Let us now discuss the definition of leadership. While motivation is the process through which employees are made to contribute voluntarily to work, leadership is the ability to persuade and motivate others to work in a desired way for achieving the goal. Thus, a person who is able to influence others and make them follow his instructions is called a leader. Leadership is the process which influences the people and inspires them to willingly accomplish the organizational objectives. The main purpose of managerial leadership is to get willing cooperation of the work group in pursuit of the goals.
TechnoFun presents series on leadership basics. This tutorial will define leadership. What is leadership? How do we define leadership? Leadership is the act of organizing a group of people and influencing them towards a common goal. Leadership comes from the core of personality and, unlike management, cannot be taught. The leader may or may not have a formal authority. Components of leadership. There are 5 major components of leadership: leader, followers, situation, common goal, communication. Qualities of a good leader. The leadership qualities that are required to make a good leader can vary in different companies, teams, and situations. However, there are some leadership qualities that all leaders need to demonstrate, such as integrity, character, vision, initiative, focus, charisma, passion, positive attitude, communication, problem solving.
Importance of leadership. The objectives of any organization can only be fulfilled if its employees are working towards accomplishment of such objectives. To make people work in the desired manner, proper instructions and guidance are necessary. Some of these importances are: leadership improves the performance of the employees. Leaders can motivate the followers to work and thereby increase their performance level. With continuous support and guidance, leaders are able to build confidence among the followers, thereby increasing speed and accuracy and decreasing wastage. With friendly and cooperative efforts, the leader is able to build employees' morale, which in turn contributes to higher productivity. Leadership qualities. In order to be a successful leader, a leader must possess certain good qualities. A good leader should be professionally competent, intelligent, analytical, and he or she should have a sense of fair play, including honesty, sincerity, integrity, and a sense of responsibility. He must also be able to communicate his subordinates effectively.
IVI. The first I stands for inspirational. A leader must be able to inspire not only her team, but also clients, suppliers, and partners, because getting total buy-in of the vision is vital. Otherwise, a vision is just words in a dusty handbook when no one is actually enthused by it. V stands for virtuous. Do you want others to trust you? Do you want others to trust your team and your business? Of course! Then you, as a leader, must be authentic and be that person of integrity, as the business and the team is a reflection of your character. The second I, innovative. A leader in a startup will have limited human capital, time, and funds to work with. So in order to reach ambitious goals with very little resources, a leader must have the skills to make lemonade. You know, when life throws you lemons, or opt to take the path less traveled. These idioms are just different ways of emphasizing the absolute need for leaders to innovate and experiment. Well, that wraps up IVI, the top 3 qualities of a leader in a growing enterprise: inspirational, virtuous, and innovative.
Roles of leadership. We learn leadership by being a leader. That is one of the major benefits of serving as a student part officer, having the opportunity to learn and sharpen skills to become a better team member, a better manager, a better leader. Faculty advisor. The advisor establishes and maintains the continuity of the student. The advisor's actions are guided by a clear understanding of the materials field in a societal context, as well as familiarity with the benefits of participation in an established professional community. Main responsibilities. Primary contact with social headquarters, receives materials for distribution to officers, receives rebate for distribution to treasurer, advises officers and committee chairs on the formation and implementation of goals, objectives, and programs. Ensures that the student understands the roles of ASORS, AIST, ASM, TMS as a professional organization. Executive officers. The quality of leadership provided by an officer significantly influence the level of involvement and participation of other members and interested individuals and the success of the as a whole. Officers' responsibilities. Understand the rules of government for student and the bylaws. Acts as a primary interface between the student, the faculty advisor, the department, the university, and the societies. Establishes a clear set of objectives and an operating plan for the year. Takes responsibility for fulfillment of the established objectives. Trains the next class of elected officers. Now, moving on to the next topic, we will study the theories of leadership. Not only is there no agreement about the theory of leadership, there are those who question the very notion of leadership. They believe the present emphasis on individualism and freedom of choice is at odds with the traditional reliance on strong, effective leaders. Some people would purposefully avoid leadership because they believe it requires the manipulation of other persons and limits people's freedom of choice. These individuals tend to associate leadership with elitism and the kind of power seeking which sometimes leads to corruption of goals and unnecessary conflict. Some would go so far as to say that modern education and mass communication make leaders unnecessary. As yet, however, there has been no indication that leaders are no longer necessary, and apparently there are no successful groups without leadership. Even when some members of a group consciously avoid leaders' role, others arise to fill the void. The leader's concern for goal achievement and people's feelings are each assigned a 1 to 9 numerical equivalent, with 1 showing very little concern and 9 showing high concern. Charting these numbers on a horizontal axis measures a leader's concern for production and comparing it to vertical axis hat measures the leader's concern for people gives a clearer picture of the balance that exists between the two behaviors. First, the organization itself plays a role in the leader's behavior. Repeatedly, culture, norms or rules dictate behaviors a leader would not ordinarily adopt. Usually, however, leaders' values, personal history and chance predispose them to use one approach on another. Let's know the meaning of leadership styles. Leadership is less about our needs and more about the needs of the people and the organization we are leading. Leadership styles are not something to be tried on like so many suits to see which fits. Rather, they should be adapted to the particular demands of the situation, the particular requirements of the people involved, and the particular challenges facing the organization. The most effective leaders can move among these styles, adopting the one that meets the needs of the moment. They can all become part of the leader's repertoire. Visionary. This style is most appropriate when an organization needs a new direction. Its goal is to move people towards a new set of shared dreams. Visionary leaders articulate where a group is going, but not how it will get there, setting people free to innovate, experiment, take calculated risks. Coaching. This one-on-one style focuses on developing individuals, showing them how to improve their performance and helping to connect their goals to the goals of the organization. Coaching works best with employees who show initiative and want more professional development.
In this video blog, I'd like to share a few ideas with you around leadership, or at least my point of view on leadership. During the last couple of months, I've been in dozens of organizations, run into some fantastic leaders, but I've also run into just a handful of quote-unquote leaders that still believed the command and control, do as I say, not as I do. I get to order you around. I come up with the ideas, you implement them. You don't come to my office without permission or anything even close to that. They believed that that style of leadership was still effective. Well, if you look in the mirror and any of those sound like you a little bit, I want to tell you something. That style of leadership does not work anymore. It'll actually turn your people against you. It'll demotivate them, and it will decrease your effectiveness as a leader. Today, in this day and age, here's what people look for in a leader they would willingly follow. And I can tell you this because I've written a book on it. I've researched it heavily, probably read 300 or 400 books on leadership. And I just did a proprietary research project about 1.5 years ago where I reached out to 8,000 high potential employees worldwide and asked them, what are the characteristics of a leader you would willingly follow? And along the lines of this command and control, here's what I'll tell you that what they really want. They want a collaborative leader. They want someone who will treat them with respect, who will roll up their sleeves, who will get in there and do the work with them. They want someone who they respect for their competence, someone they can look at them and say, this person could do my job, maybe not as well, but pretty close, but they understand my job, and I'm willing to listen to their input and their advice because I can see that they're highly competent. They care about what they're doing. Another thing they really look for is a team player. Yes, they know you're the leader, but they don't need you to lord it over them. You don't have to constantly remind them that you're the leader, you have rank, they have to do what you tell them to do. Because really good employees will not take that, and that leads to really high turnover. What happens is anybody who doesn't think that you're competent, doesn't feel like they're being treated with respect, doesn't see you being a living example of what you're asking them to do, and you do this, do as I say, not as I do. It's do as I do because that's the right way to do it. If they don't see that, any employee who has enough competence, skill, and confidence will go out and find a job someplace else, leaving you only with the ones who can't get a job anyplace else. So, some of you may be watching this video and say, that's not me at all, or it might be a little uncomfortable because you see some aspects. Put all that in the past and just realize that going forward, to be an exemplary leader, one who gets the most out of their people, one who maximizes their motivation, their willingness to do extra work, their desire to do great work, what that leader needs to do is first and foremost be a living example of everything you want your people to be.
Functions of leadership. The leadership functions of the managers are closely related with his managerial functions. The functions are different as well as overlapping in some ways. The 4 important functions of leadership are to develop teamwork. The first basic function of the leader is to develop his work group as a team. The responsibility of a leader is to create a friendly work environment by keeping a close view of his subordinates' competence, needs and potential abilities, to act as a representative of the work group. The second function of leader is to act as a representative of the work group. The leader of a work group is to expect to act as a link between the group and top management. The leadership is expected to communicate the problems and grievances of his subordinates to top management in desired circumstances, to act as a counselor of the people at work. The third function of leader is to act as a counselor of the people at work. The leader is expected to guide and advise the concerned subordinate when he is facing problems in connection with the performance at work. The concerned problem can be technical or emotional in nature. Time management. The fourth important function of leader is time management. The leader function is to check the timeliness completion at different stages of work and also ensuring quality and efficiency of work performed by the group. Technique of leadership. A manager, while directing the subordinates, must cultivate certain qualities among his subordinates. This can give a confidence about the superior. Confidence building. By successfully applying all the management techniques, a manager gains knowledge and experience. He refines the art of application of various techniques through his own experience. This alone can give him a confidence about his job and position. Zeal building. Leadership must also bring zeal to the manager, but this zeal nature should not be misused by the subordinates. Inspiration. Every manager must develop his own inspirational techniques. This cannot be taught. Through his own experience, a manager must inspire his subordinates. Strengthening. Personal qualities. The moral code and personal character of a leader can influence the subordinates towards a good end. Securing cooperation. Nothing is as important to the success of an industrial enterprise as the ability of the leaders to secure from all who are associated with the undertaking the willingness and desire to give their best efforts in furthering the objectives and ideas for which the concern has been established. The use of power. With leadership goes power. Wise leadership uses power in the best interest of the enterprise and the groups related to it. Coordination and command. In order to get the desired action, a successful leader must coordinate the acts of his co-workers through order or commands. These orders should be definite, sequential, flexible, and open. The term definite order means that the command may come not as an oral order from a superior but as a part of the system of communication which has been established for the accomplishment of the planned goals. The sequential order arranges the acts to be performed in the sequence and specifies when each shall be done. Maintaining discipline. Discipline is the force that prompts an individual or group to observe rules, regulations, and procedures that are demanded necessary to the attainment of an objective. It is the force that restrains individuals or groups from doing things that all deemed destructive of group objectives. Developing high group morale. Morale is the state of mind or attitude of individuals and groups growing out of the conditions under which they operate, including their operating environment, their particular activity or work, the associations in the group, the quality of the leadership, and the demands the worker is making upon his job. Let's know the meaning of types of leadership. Leadership can be categorized in myriad ways. There are several types of leadership, and while some of them are based on approaches or leadership styles, the others are based on the features of a leader. However, there is another category of leadership that tells us about leaders in the organizational hierarchy. Individual leadership. An individual is supposed to perform at a reasonable high level in an organization. In other words, the individual will be responsible and recognized for his or her own contribution. Basically, when we talk about types of leadership, we do not always refer to a team of leaders, but also on those individuals who are leading an organization on their own. Organizational leadership. As far as organizational leadership is concerned, it refers to the leaders that are present in the highest level as well as the middle level in an organization. However, this type of leadership, the individual is supposed to perform indirectly, or they may not have any direct association with the organization.
Poor leaders make today worse for everyone by using coercive power. Transactional leaders make today better by rewarding good performance. In contrast, transformational leaders are focused on making tomorrow better. They do this in 4 ways. Firstly, vision. Transformational leaders create a noble vision to work towards that inspires others. Secondly, authenticity. Transformational leaders are authentic in their commitment to the mission, not just to personal gain. Their integrity inspires the team to take action. Thirdly, a growth mindset. Transformational leaders cultivate their team's professional and personal development. They invest time and energy, knowing their effort will eventually bear fruit. And they recognize both an individual's effort as well as their performance. And finally, creativity. Transformational leaders encourage team members to develop ideas, work with flair, and embrace originality. They allow measured risks, which helps to foster a culture of innovation. In short, teams with transformational leaders are constantly being transformed for the better. To review, transformational leaders work towards a noble vision, act with authenticity and honesty, adopt a growth mindset, and promote creativity and new ideas.
Let's know the meaning of contingency model of leader effectiveness. In the 1960s, Fred Fielder advanced the first theory using the contingency approach, the contingency theory of effectiveness. The main idea of this early theory is that leadership effectiveness depends on the interaction of two factors: the leader's task or relations, motivations, and aspects of the situation. The leader's task or relations motivation is measured through the least preferred co-worker scale, LPC. This scale asks leaders to recall a co-worker that worked with least well and to characterize this individual with ratings on the series of 8-point bipolar adjectives. High LPC scores reflect more positive descriptions of the least preferred co-worker, whereas low LPC scores evidence more negative perceptions. Path goal theory. Path goal theory was originally developed by Martin Evans in 1970 and expanded by Robert House in 1971 into a more complex contingency theory. Drawing on expectancy theory and the Ohio and Michigan leader behavior studies, House suggested that a leader should help elucidate the path for followers to achieve group goals. Normative decision model. Many contingency theories define leadership effectiveness in terms of group performance or team satisfaction. However, the normative decision model is a unique contingency theory in its exclusive focus on providing prescriptions to optimize the leader's decision-making process. The normative decision model, originally developed by Victor Vroom and Philip Yetton in 1973 and later revised by Victor Vroom and Arthur Jago, emphasizes situational factors more than leadership behaviors. Situational leadership theory. The situational leadership theory, put forth by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard in 1969, proposes that leadership effectiveness depends on the leader's ability to tailor his or her behavior to the demands of the situation, namely the subordinate's level of maturity. Let's know the meaning of leader behaviors. There are a number of common behaviors recognized in an effective team leader at the helm of a productive team. In particular, an effective team leader displays ability to communicate effectively, recognize the developmental requirements of team members, set goals and motivate the team to achieve them, provide enthusiastic and creative encouragement, model acceptable behavior, communicate effectively. An effective team leader provides a high level of communication to the team members about the goals that have been achieved, any goals that still need to be achieved, how to achieve these goals, where team members can go for support, recognize the developmental requirements of team members. An effective team leader will identify the developmental needs of the team members and will install a process to ensure that each individual's needs are developed, set goals and motivate the team to achieve them. An effective team leader will set clear, identifiable and achievable goals and will be able to plan and monitor a team's progress against these goals. Provide enthusiastic and creative encouragement. Effective team leaders encourage creative and innovative approaches to problem solving. Model acceptable behavior. An effective team leader provides the team with an appropriate role model. The team leader will demonstrate both acceptable behavior and the relevant skills required by the team to undertake their roles within the enterprise. Now, in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. The advisor's actions are guided by a clear understanding of the material's field in a societal context, as well as familiarity with the benefits of participation in an established professional community. Theory X managers assume people are basically lazy and by their very nature dislike work. Since people have little ambition and tend to shun responsibility, they avoid work when possible. The manager or country club manager, on the other hand, has somehow reached the conclusion that concentrating on people and their needs is critical. The leader, working as manager, has to set the group goal, make plans, motivate and inspire subordinates, supervise performance, but has to perform several other functions as leader of the group. Many contingency theories define leadership effectiveness in terms of group performance or team satisfaction. The leader's function is to continually evaluate and adapt his or her behavior to each follower's task maturity 3, that is ability, and psychological maturity, that is willingness to complete the task at hand.